Hey YouTube, Minnesota Vikings lost last week in Tampa Bay against the Buccaneers. And yes, Jeff Garcia had a great game, and there are a lot of things you can say about the game, but I don't think there are any excuses to be made. The Vikings just lost. The defense couldn't get themselves off the field in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. You look at the time of possession for that game, especially late in the game, and you look at the play calling and a few other things. Minnesota they didn't look as good. The defensive line did not look as good as it usually does. The defense in general did not look as good as it usually does. And, tip my hat to the Buccaneers. They just outplayed the Vikings. They deserved that win. And there weren't really any big fluky plays or Gus Farad interceptions that Vikings fans can blame that on. So, there's another loss. Minnesota falls down to 5-5 after having a chance to go to 6-4 and take the sole lead in the NFC North. Because, of course, the Packers and the Bears are also at 5-5. But, looking ahead, Minnesota's got another outdoor Florida game. Of course, they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, you look at this Jaguars team, and last year they found success running the ball and playing good defense and having an efficient, mistake-free passing game. Sound familiar? That's been Minnesota's game plan for years, it seems. And they haven't found too much success with it, but Jacksonville found success last year. Not so much this year. I think they got off to a slow start because their offensive line had a ton of injuries. And Garrard's just been throwing more interceptions this year like everyone knew he would. I think he only threw 2 last year, and that just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen 2 years in a row. So they've been struggling. Their offensive line is healthier, but using a running attack against Minnesota until last week at least is not a very effective game plan. So it'll be interesting to see how Minnesota's defense bounces back. Do they contain Jones-Drew and Fred Taylor? Or do they give up yards and Jacksonville gains enough yardage by running up the middle that Minnesota just simply can't win the game? If Jacksonville runs effectively, I don't think Minnesota wins this game. If Minnesota can contain that rush and the offense can move the ball against the Jacksonville defense enough to score even in the high teens or low 20s, Minnesota has a good chance of winning the game. The 2 big question marks, as usual, are Gus Farad throwing interceptions. By the way, good job, Gus, not throwing one last week. And special teams. Now, special teams, I think, is especially worrisome against Jacksonville because Maurice Jones-Drew has run a few kicks back for touchdowns, and he's good at it. And as we all know, Minnesota is generous in giving up special teams touchdowns. Also, and I can see the storyline now, former Vikings wide receiver Troy Williamson, who, despite all his faults, is still a very fast guy. Maybe he'll get a chance to do some returns. Maybe he'll burn the Vikings and set up excellent field position or even just get a touchdown on his own for Jacksonville. I can see it happening. So, yeah, Jacksonville's record isn't great, but Minnesota's got to take care of business in order to win this game. Now, you look at the rest of the schedule, and you look at the Packers and the Bears, and you try to figure out who's going to win this NFC North, and it's tough. I had someone write a message to me asking me about my thoughts on the NFC North, who's going to win. And in my heart, I say the Vikings, but honestly, if I had to put some money on it, right now I'd have to pick the Green Bay Packers. They've been more consistent this year than the Vikings have been. The Vikings have had wild swings. in their play. And the Bears are just, it's hard to say. I mean, their defense looks bad right now, and I don't know. You know, they've got a shot, but I think they're probably the least likely out of the three teams to win the NFC North. So, the way Minnesota can win the NFC North is they got to beat Jacksonville. They need to win against the Bears, and they got to take care of business against the Lions. That brings them to 8 wins. Now you look at the other games on their schedule. They play the Cardinals, okay, and they play the Giants in Week 17. And in order to get 1 or 2 wins out of those games, you have to say either the Giants have nothing to play for in Week 17, or Eli Manning throws 3 or 4 interceptions the way he's been known to do against Minnesota. And with the Cardinals, you have to think maybe Kurt Warner takes 3 or 4 sacks, and coach just pulls him out of the game saying, hey, we've won our division. We need Warner more in the playoffs than we do on the field for this game. So maybe get 1 or 2 wins out of that. That brings Minnesota to 9 or 10 wins. And I forget what the last game is on the schedule.